Okay, now number 5, with 3,733 votes, is Run to the Hills. Quote, we've always enjoyed writing songs that tell the story of a bygone time, Iron Maiden Steve Harris explained. Run to the Hills is one of those songs. It's about the way white men in the American Old West exploited the Indian, unquote. In addition to being a song with a strong storyline, Run to the Hills remains one of the hardest rockin' tunes in the Maiden repertoire. With guitarist Adrian Smith and Dave Murray laying down a wall of musical thunder and Bruce Dickinson adding the perfect vocal accompaniment, Run to the Hills is unquestionably a metal classic. And I agree with that statement. It is unquestionably. I remember that music video that had all the old footage, from black and white, I think silent movies, and it was pretty funny. And it was all tongue in cheek. At the time, I didn't really get it. Today, I love it. But I remember watching that video, and just Bruce, man, the way he would scream and the energy. And that song does have a special place somehow in heavy metal, when you look at its history, because it did have, not only was it a great song, but just the rhythm, the beat, the story, it just had its own unique thing. So it is a pretty big deal. It was a big deal of a song. Okay. Now, this one, number 4, with 3,839 votes. This one, there's probably people watching this right now that would agree with this song, putting this in the top 10 and maybe even at 4 as far as its significance, even all these years later. This one is that influential. And it is Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train. So here we are in 1984, and it's only been, a few years since Crazy Train came out. And that song, it's pretty fascinating because I think if you were to go to almost any sporting event in the world today, you would hear ba-nut, da-nut, 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 you'd hear it starting. There's something about that tune that all these years later still has an impact, still influential. So it isn't my favorite Ozzy song. But it's hard to deny the influence and importance of that song, not only in heavy metal, but just in popular culture. So when they put this in a top 10 list, even in 1984, even though this is not that long after it was put out, it's kind of hard to argue with putting that in a top 10 list. Okay, in light of the incredible number of great heavy metal songs Ozzy Osbourne has been involved with over his 16-year career, it would seem hard to single out one number above all others. Our readers, however, had no such difficulty voting Crazy Train from his Ozness Blizzard of Oz LP onto our all-time list. Quote, that song means a great deal to me because of the role that Randy Rhoads played in creating it, Ozzy said. It was his riff and his idea, so the song will always have a special place in my heart. Okay. Number 3 with 4,220 votes. And this one is, again, a reflection of the time, but it's also one of those that, even though I don't really even love the song, the influence that it had in the history of heavy metal, hard rock, etc., again, is hard to deny. Even though today we don't hear it very often, it had massive influence back then. And it's Quiet Riot's Metal Health. And, when you look back at that, they're credited often with kind of bringing heavy metal to the mainstream. And this was one of the songs that did it. That album, that song, and Come On Feel the Noise, just for some reason, just had this massive influence on society. And so, anyway, it's if somebody were to put that in a top 10 list even today, I don't know that I would agree with it, but I could argue for it. When you look at its influence historically in the genre. So, quote, we were playing a song similar to Metal Health for a long time before we even recorded that album, explained Quiet Riot's vocalist Kevin DuBrow. I had different lyrics and a different title, but the chord sequences and the melody were the same. Few bands have burst upon the rock scene with the sudden force of Quiet Riot. With Metal Health helping the band reach number 1 in the sales charts, there's no denying that the song proved the continued appeal of heavy metal. Okay, now we're to the top 2. All right, number 2. with 4,696 votes. And now be thinking, what would be your top 2 songs? And this is one of those, even though it's so, I know it almost seems like too obvious, it's another one of those tunes that's a little bit hard to argue with, even though it's been abused and overplayed and over-listened to over the years. But it is just that good. It's Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. And it says, perhaps rock's most famous song. It has long been debated whether Stairway to Heaven is in fact a heavy metal song. And this gets back to what we were saying earlier. Today, that word, that phrase, that term is kind of almost meaningless because it's been applied to so many things. It's hard to talk in those terms. But at the time, going back into the 70s and 80s, people were throwing the Led Zeppelin, and of course, because of it, that song under that moniker. While undeniably the mighty Zepp remained the ultimate metal masters, the intricate melodic structures of Stairway, as well as its liberal use of acoustic instruments, seems unfitting for a metal masterpiece. Yet, judging by your incredible support for the song, Stairway to Heaven has once again proven its lasting appeal. Quote, "It was always my favorite song to sing on stage," Robert Plant stated. "No matter how many times we played it, Stairway was always exciting to perform." And it is funny because, of course, that's the one that if you're a guitar player and you go into a guitar shop and you start playing it, they'll come turn it off because it just became something that was played so much, overplayed, that it became kind of a joke. And you're aware, that. But like so many other things that get beat to death like that, the song is that good. It's just that good. So it again, like I've said a few times, it's hard to argue with some of these when you have a song like that where you go, what am I supposed to do? Pretend like it's not that great? It just is. I don't care how many times I've heard it. Kind of like Robert Plant said there. Every time he sings it, he just enjoys it. It is that good. It's that good of a tune. Okay. Now, number 1. What would be your number? Now, again, 1984. What would be your number 1? What would be your number 1 heavy metal song of all time? Now, the song that got picked here is a reflection of the time. I would be surprised if this made it onto anybody's top 10 list today. It might, because it was a pretty significant tune, but I wouldn't put it anywhere near a top 10 list. But this was a pretty significant song and kind of maybe remains one even to this day on some level. And it had 5,172 votes, and it's Def Leppard, and it's the song Rock of Ages. Now, when you think back to that period, how big that song was. Do you remember Untag Lieben, Glatten Globe? As soon as you would hear that, like the whole place would, just everybody would go crazy. It was the song was that good. It was so much fun. And it just really helped solidify Def Leppard as this behemoth, massive force in hard rock. And for me, Pyromania, I love that album. It's one of my favorite albums of all time, but I also don't think it's Def Leppard's best album. I think High and Dry is better than Pyromania. But it still was a great album. And Rock of Ages undeniably was a fun, crazy, cool song. And it that whole album proved that those guys knew how to write a good song. They were good musicians. They could rock. And so Rock of Ages. So let's hear what they had to say about it. While June's Hit Parader Top 10 list totally neglected Def Leppard, our readers obviously made up for that oversight by voting the band's recent Rock of Ages the top heavy metal song of all time. I mean, there's a few songs you could pick off of High and Dry that might make it up into those top. I don't know if it's top 10, but up in that area. Like the song Let It Go. I mean, the riff is so perfect. The vocals are so great. The different movements in the song, the solos. I mean, it's just amazing. So they did have songs that had that were kind of almost worthy of being in a top 10 list like this. I don't know if Rock of Ages was, but they really were great. Okay, so oversight, Rock of Ages, all time. With its volcanic instrumentation and infectious melody, vocalist Joe Elliott, bassist Rick Savage, drummer Rick Allen, and guitarists Steve Clark and Phil Collen have created a metal anthem that has turned on millions of fans around the world via its appearance on Pyromania and MTV. Quote, I thought it was one of the strongest tracks on Pyromania, Steve Clark said. In fact, I thought it would be the first song on the album released as a single. It's very special when you can write a good hard rock song that isn't geared only for a hard rock audience. And that they really set that standard in some ways on that album, Pyromania. Because you remember the other song that was on that album that just exploded was Photograph.